Evolution.org supplements episode number 33 is coming your way. Today we're going to talk about learning about supplements to boost libido and erection. So this is a very important episode. This will come in handy both on cycle, off cycle, whether you run steroids, whether you don't run steroids. And it's something that a lot of men are very shy about talking about. But we're going to talk about it because that's what we do on this podcast. Reminder, we are on Apple, we are on Spotify. Please smash the like button, subscribe, do all those things to help the algorithms pick up our podcast. Without that, we won't even exist. So it's very, very important to support the podcast in that way. So let's talk about this, Mobster. And look, in this episode, we're going to go over all this stuff. We're going to talk about libido. We're going to talk about erections. I know, Mobster's culture over there in Europe, they're much more open about this stuff. And in America, especially if you're like in the deep south, nobody wants to talk about this shit. But it's very, very important to, and we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about HCGenerate, all the ingredients and how it's going to help you with all this. We're going to talk about how to run HCGenerate effectively. And we're going to talk about N2BM and why they produced HCGenerate in the first place. So Mobster, why don't you start us off? Touch upon libido, maybe do a little history lesson on libido. Talk about when, how old a man is when his
Yeah,
libido is peaking and when his libido starts dropping, and kind of touch on all the stuff doing with
mm.
women and divorces and all this shit, having kids. Talk about the
Yeah.
history.
And you and I have done multiple shows talking about fertility, and there's this kind of There's almost I've seen this done as a meme, Steve. I think there's two books that don't exist that we kind of wished existed. One is how to understand women, and they've got this book in the picture, and it's like 10,000 pages or something, and very few of us are more than a couple of pages in. And the other one is the book of life. And the book of life, unfortunately, tends to come by fucking experience and not by someone sitting down and explaining, having spoke to 10,000 men or 10,000 women, explaining to you, this is what's going to happen when you're a teenager. This is what's going to happen in your 20s and so on. So just by way of example, and you get to understand this because, again, most of our listeners will not be teenagers. Most of you are going to be somewhere between, I think the core audience is going to be somewhere between 18 and 25. We've probably got a bigger percentage of many shows with a slightly higher age for most of our listeners. So let's imagine that I'm talking to the 30 to 34-year-old listener. You will know what your libido is like when you hit puberty. You didn't think about it at all. Even babies can get erections, but you didn't think about it at all when you was prepubescent. The moment you hit puberty, boom, there's that fucking erection, and it's kind of annoying. The wind's changed. You literally had a girl look at you. The girl in the supermarket smiled at you when she pushed your fucking baked beans over the scanner, or whatever. It's kind of almost out of control. In reality, of course, it's not. It's not even the peak level of testosterone or hormones, if you like, that you're going to have. It's just the first fucking time. It's like having a car, you ain't got a clue how to drive it, how fast it is. You got to get the feel for it as you get into your early 20s and so on. Nature's a bit of a bitch because modern society's got you doing one thing at certain ages, and nature's got you doing other things. And we almost look down on primitive societies getting married early and having kids early. They're still kids. They don't understand. And we know because we were teenagers, having a baby when you're in your teens is not a good idea. You lack the experience to be a good parent. And yet, ironically, we are kind of almost set up biologically, Steve, probably to have kids. And again, especially in terms of primitive man, late teens, 15, 16, 17, arguably in modern society, even though there are a bunch of other things that's going on, we're kind of probably set up realistically to have kids in terms of biology again, and a little bit of experience and a little bit of education and a little bit of work and whatever the fuck else in our mid-20s. In reality, we tend to leave things longer. And we know, because you and I have done shows on fertility, that we talk about the drop-off in hormonal levels and testosterone and libido, meaning specifically the desire, I'll put it crudely, Steve, the desire to fuck, the desire to procreate. tends to drop off. And it's worse in what we call the modern world, specifically the first world versus the third world, whatever the fuck that means, because of the stresses that we allow ourselves to have, modern society, the effects of chemicals in our food, in our water, uh, pollution in the air from factories and environmental and so on and so forth, and all these other factors that are playing. We've discussed this multiple times for fertility per se. But again, overall, very simplistically, libido is the desire. It's not necessarily the erection as such, or women getting wet, or whatever. It is just the urge to procreate. And it's kind of super basic. I described this on a fertility episode that you and I recorded recently, where I said something to the effect of pretty much even the unintelligent species, never mind the quote unquote intelligent ones like human race, Homo sapiens, whether we like to admit it or not, are there just to further the rest of our species, meaning that we might think we fall in love with someone, and sometimes we do. We might think we're just horny as fuck and want to fuck someone, and sometimes that's all we want, just to get our rocks off. We're not looking to get a girl pregnant. But the biological impetus is to further the race so that we don't die out. And it's very, very difficult, regardless of how intelligent we are, to get past it. The problem, this is the age thing, and I say this at 61 as we do this show, is it isn't constant. Let me give you a couple of silly, sort of slightly tongue-in-cheek examples. Imagine me at 61 and Steve, what are you, Steve, now 40-something? The idea that we would still be like we was when we hit puberty. Oh my God, that would be horrendous. Literally getting erections to be waiting at the bus stop or in the supermarket. It would be annoying as fuck. Funny, almost, look at me still getting erections all the fucking time, but realistically, annoying. In the same way, and I'll use the honeymoon period, when we first meet someone that's absolutely amazing. I don't care what your sexual predilections are. That quote unquote honeymoon period at the beginning, you don't want to be away from that person. Again, it's kind of fun and enjoyable, and we like the sensation. But if we were like that all the time, we wouldn't be able to go to work, we wouldn't be able to go to school, we wouldn't be able to fucking shop in the supermarket. I can't come over and stand by me when I'm getting to bed, darling. I can't have you more than 6 inches away. And then, of course, the whole, fucking 12 hours a day or whatever. It's fun. Again, it's great, but it cannot be constant. So there are definite peaks and troughs. And the reality, and again, the majority of your audience are men, we can be uncomfortable. We're kind of keen as teenagers to boast and brag about, I'm fucking horny all the time, I'm getting all the girls. And then maybe we carry on that a little bit into our early 20s. But after a while, you calm the fuck down and you stop feeling that you need to prove to your buddies, your mates, your pals, your peers, just how horny you are when it comes to women. You calm the fuck down a bit and you mature. And you suddenly stop telling everybody about your sex life. And especially if you've actually found the one. And the reality, again, is thus. You get past the honeymoon period, she has a baby. She's not going to want to do it. There's even a sort of nesting thing that comes with men. The difference between wanting to fuck every woman with a pulse and the settling down. There's almost a hormonal thing that drops off. That's nature. It makes you a better father than a fucker. And again, I'm just putting in crude terms, guys, to keep it simple. So the reality is thus. Your granddad and your granny might be getting action. They might be fucking. But are they fucking like they did when they was in their 20s during the first time that they hooked up? God, no. They're definitely not at it 7 times a night, Steve, 4 or 5 nights a week. They're almost certainly, unless they're a little bit freaky, not getting multiple partners. They're almost certainly, again, especially if they're your granny and your granddad, being together a long-ass time. I was listening to an advert earlier on where a woman was talking about a product, and she said, I can get a new version of this every month. That's longer than some of my relationships. Some of the stuff that we've all been through at some point, amazing, intense, but very short-lived, months if we were lucky, versus the longer, slower relationships that you grow into over time. So libido is not a constant. It can almost be out of control at the beginning. It calms down a little bit. The kind of annoying part, and this is the reason why products like HCGenerate exist, and we're going to talk about testosterone boost and HCGenerate in a little while, is there's a bunch of stuff going on in society today, whether that is a shitty diet, as I mentioned before, pollution and stuff that I touched upon, stresses that we bring to the table. And we can, and again, we'll touch upon the why we can look at some of the factors that are involved outside of using products like this, and I'll touch upon that later on, but before we talk about HCGenerate, we can do certain things in our life to correct some of these issues. We can correct, because we have the knowledge and you're listening to the show, certain elements of poor diet and lifestyle. We can understand, for example, Steve, here's another one that fucks with your libido. Certain prescription medications, certain recreational drugs, too much alcohol, way too much stress. When I've been at the most driven work-wise, both in terms of sheer hours per week, also my most competitive, arguably when I was using steroids, getting world records, my libido went into some sort of coma. It literally kind of switched off and was way over there in the distance being ignored. I think I was still slightly horny in terms of taking things in hands, but my interest in women was almost nil. And I was so focused on other particular things, growing a company, making money, competing, traveling the world to compete, doing all that kind of stuff, building up arguably what is my kind of reputation now. And I think I went for a period then, Steve, when I was still masturbating. I had no interest in women for nigh on 6 years. Prior to that, I think I dated a different person every 18 months. When I came here and I meet them libido, and I'd have been 50, 49, 50 when I came here to where I am now. But yeah, I'm going to say 48, 49. I went into overdrive again, which was quite strange for me at that age, basically middle-aged, shagging like it was going out of fucking fashion, but again, for a very brief period of time. Literally a kid in a sweet shop. There is no constant, there's no linear, there are multiple factors at play, but that book, the book would need to tell you that you are not going to be in the puberty stage, changing with the fucking wind blowing in a different direction and getting a harder. That you won't be fucking like it's going out of fashion with that one girl, even though she's the most amazing thing ever, like you did at the beginning of the relationship. Sometimes the women get confused. There's like, we were fucking all the time. Doesn't he love me anymore? He still fucking loves you. It's just normal to calm the fuck down. And the thing is, that book doesn't exist because it varies. Let me give you one more example, Steve. And this is one of those truisms again. And I've told silly versions of these stories over the years. What applies to your body today and you in comparison almost certainly won't have the same libido. I think I used this story before. That was a black buddy of mine, work colleague, shall we say, in a meat factory job. And he was getting a different girlfriend every fucking week, Stephen. At that point, for whatever reason, as far as the guys were concerned, I wasn't. I got to be honest, I was a bit of a late developer. I did later on. And I was able to yank his chain, to joke with him, saying, you're getting it all out of your system right at the beginning. Whereas I ended up being that way for quite a while, was a much slower, take my time, have a partner every 18 months kind of vibe, as I talked about already. And within a year or two of leaving that company, I happened to see him on the street. And I'd said to him in joke, tongue in cheek, something to the effect of, within a year or two, you'll be hooked up, you'll have a baby mama, you'll probably have 2 kids. And literally, I think I saw him 24 months later, one in the pram, and she was pregnant with the next one. He'd hooked up, he'd settled down, there he was. He'd gone from shagging a different girl every week to settling the fuck down. He'd got all that crazy shit out of his system in his 20s. By the time he hit 25, 30, he was done. Whereas I carried on being a bit of an idiot, if you like, enjoying myself in one way or another, with non-serious and non-serious relationship, on and off, probably for the next 10, 15 years. I think I had one 5-year relationship, and all the rest were 18 months on average. So there is no constant between you and your buddies. There is no, this is your libido X, this is your libido Y. It will change. If you're going through divorce, if you're moving home, all of the list of things which are the death in the family, all of the list of things that are the most stressful emotionally, mentally, will fuck with your libido. You're more likely to get your leg over, Steve, fuck, to put it crudely, when you're relaxed and on holiday with your wife than you are at home. You're more likely to enjoy yourself when she's not thinking about the kids or bills or getting to work on time. You're more likely to enjoy yourself if you're not ill or dealing with someone else who's ill. The last thing that most people do, unless you're just about to die, and in which case some of us seem to want to fuck then, even if it's only because it's life affirming, is the idea that someone's just died makes you want to have sex. No. If to cuddle at the most, maybe have sex just because you cuddled, but not because someone died. It's just not the way that we're built. So you're going to experience all these different things through life in terms of just life being what it is. That's going to make an effect on your libido. You will not, it changes as you age. It changes, as we've done on the shows with that facility, when your testosterone levels naturally drop off. We talked about, again, typically I'm going to say, and again, guys, we could argue the actual number, but from the age of 40 onwards, 1% per year, meaning, again, 40-year-old versus a 90-year-old should be getting more action. It's as simple as that, and certainly better erections. And that's without dealing with the modern stresses and other impacts like we've talked about already. Modern society, Steve, the fear of missing out that makes people go out and spend $1,000 on the latest mobile telephone. The idea that your buddy's got a bigger television screen than you, so you have to get the biggest, even if you can't afford it, or you've got to have the latest car, or you've got to spend $4,000 or $5,000 on a Disney holiday, keep up with the Joneses, do what your buddy's doing, and then work your ass off to pay for these fucking things, be in debt, and then the stresses. And why would you be stressed to fucking have a great libido? So,
You should start your own podcast, Boomer Rants of the Day. Yeah. If everyone did that in America, our economy would literally collapse the next day. If nobody was out there spending money and trying to keep up with the Joneses, like every car dealership in America would go hungry. So it's just like not realistic. But yeah, we are definitely consumers in America. That's for sure. We consume a lot. So that is true. What you're saying. Yeah.
The consumption's not the issue. It's the stresses of thinking you need to and then paying for it. How many in the Americans, to a lesser degree, the UK is a good example. I'm trying to think now, Steve, I have zero debt. And I mean zero debt. There's things I need to spend money on. I've got money in the bank. But I don't owe on any credit card. I do have an overdraft, but I'm not using it. I've got a silly amount of money in my bank account. My overdraft is £200, about $300.
I love that. I love that because when you kick the can, guess what? That money's that money's coming my way, buddy. That money's coming my way. So I love to hear that.
Yeah, but I've also done the crazy hours, the crazy work, the doubling my income thing, etc., etc. And ironically, Steve, that's just how stupid that was. That probably fucked my libido. And by doing all the extra work and having all the extra money, I was working so much I didn't have time to spend the money. So what the fuck was I working all that hard for? So look, guys, it's obvious, right? Look, the reality of the situation and what maybe the discussion needs to be with the boomer type show that Steve talks about. Funny enough, we're just having a conversation with the lady behind the gym today, being on HRT, and the difference it's made to her and her fella, her husband, paid for the private doctor, got the prescription sorted out, etc., etc. And it's made a big difference to just her mental health, never mind physical, sexual, whatever. So again, adult conversations. We are, and perhaps it's going to indication of age, becoming more comfortable. This show is a good example. You go back 10 years, Steve, shows like us right now, as we're talking about today, about fertility and libido, did not exist. There is something, just to clarify, and to end this thought, if you like. Sometimes, and again, I think it more applies to people that haven't done enough research or the younger listener, misunderstand the difference between an erection.
Yeah. So let me talk about
and libido. So yes, talk about that.
Yeah, if you don't mind me getting a word in. So let me talk about libido before we move to erection. And I don't mean to interrupt Boomer TV on this one, but look, at the end of the day, what Mobster says is absolutely true. So libido and erections are completely different. You can have a good libido and bad erections, or bad erections and good libido, and that happens sometimes a lot. And look, at the end of the day, with libido, it's the urge of wanting to go do it. And sometimes we get to the point where we don't want to do it. And Mobster talked about the stresses of life. When we get bogged down with work, you think when we come home from work, after a long, stressful day in the office, getting yelled at by customers, getting yelled at by the boss, getting yelled at by coworkers, really getting annoyed all fucking day. Do you really feel like you're in the mood as soon as you get home? And you may, if you're listening to this and you're a younger guy, you're like, hell yeah, I want to do it. I want to do it. But what ends up happening is when you're banging the same fucking pussy day in and day out, week in or week out, it gets boring after a while and you just don't have that urge anymore to want to do it. So what happens is your libido starts dropping, and a lot of times it's a combination of things like what Mobster was saying. It's a red flag that something's going on in your body, low testosterone, organ issues. All these things can be a link to having poor libido. So it's very important to know about this and know that it's going to happen and it's normal. And you can definitely help this with these natural supplements that we're going to talk about shortly. So let's talk about erections. Let me start this one on Monster, and I'll give you plenty of time to talk about it because I'm sure you have experience with this more than I do. So erections, look, as we said, they're very different than libido.
That's a teenage
I
Stevesmi
don't
coming
probably,
out. Yeah.
and it's actually the opposite because you're British. You guys are fucking like, you guys are horny over there, you know?
I,
Brits are horny
I
people.
have
That's
no
why you try to
idea. I
take
need
over
to
the
go to
world.
America to find out.
That's why you
But
guys
go on,
want
Steve.
to. Yeah.
Yeah.
But look, at the end of the day, there's a quick story I want to talk about. When I first started working in office, I was in college, and there was a commercial. This was around the time. This is in the late '90s. This is around the time they started putting dick drug commercials on TV, and of course they would put it because we have the business channel on. Okay, because we were a financial office. So, of course, we had the business channel on. And they'd have these commercials, these weird fucking commercials that would come on, Mobster. I don't know if you have one in over there, but for Viagra, where they show a guy smiling and he's happy and they talk about erectile dysfunction, and I had no fucking clue what the hell this commercial was all about. I had no fucking clue what erectile dysfunction was. I turned to a coworker and I said, I just asked them one day because I got every like this. They fucking would play this commercial like 20 times a day. I went to my coworker and I was like, "What is erectile dysfunction?" And he like, and I was the youngest guy at the office at the time, and he just turned and looked at me and he started laughing. He thought I was joking, but I wasn't joking. I literally had no fucking clue that such a thing even existed because at that age, I mean, I was fucking walking 24/7 with an erection, you know? So I was going to college. There was all these fucking hot chicks in college, and it's just like you're a walking erection at that age. You have no fucking clue what it is. But then as you get older, you figure it out. Sometimes it doesn't get up when you want it to get up, and sometimes it gets up at a random thing. I'll be watching a commercial, and there'll be a girl in a bikini, and boom, I'll get an erection. And so it's just like that's the reality. So basically, what an erection is it's not able to get your penis erect when you want to, when you get in the mood, and then not staying erect for a longer
Yeah.
period of time. You could get it erect for five
Even
minutes.
Steve, the quality of it.
Yeah.
If on a scale of 1 to 10, when we were teenagers and we hit puberty, our erections would probably be like 11. But when you're like 80 years of age, I guarantee you're not getting a quote unquote 11 hard on. You're probably getting like a 7 hard on. Again, when I was at my most active, which is ironically, as I say, in my early 50s when I came here, I could not believe, I didn't know that my body was going to respond the way that it did. To put it crudely and be quite honest and brutal, and I've done this with the people in question, the ladies in question, my busiest week, and this is not fucking Guinness World Records, and I'm not bragging, my busiest week was 5 ladies, different ladies, in a week, and 2 in the same fucking day. 1 in the morning, leaving, and
I
I was
thought you were
enjoying
going to
myself.
say 5 ladies and 2 men.
Oh yeah. No, I'm
That's
just
what I
kidding.
thought you were going to.
No, I was 2 in the same day. I mean, literally one stayed the night, fucked her in the night time, fucked her in the morning,
And then the
left,
next day,
showered,
there were
cleaned
how
up,
many
tried.
men the next
No,
day?
no, yeah, give it up. Then the same day, that evening, someone else came over. And in my mind, I was thinking, are you going to be able to perform? Are you going to enjoy yourself? And I think the only reason I did is because it was a different woman. If it had been the same woman, the answer was probably no. I would argue, and funny enough, Steve, you just touched upon the ED drugs. They were fantastic. Thank you very much. Guaranteeing that something was going to happen. And I think, just again, to put it crudely and put it out there on this show, probably the best fucking hard on I've ever had was during that time when I was enjoying myself, especially when I got a bit loved up with one particular person. So, look, guys, I mean, the
But
obvious
in
thing is this
Britain,
day,
hookers don't count. You can't say I had
hookers
five
don't
women
go.
the same day.
We,
They
we
were
pay for
hookers.
it in other ways, Steve, but I've never paid
Hookers
for it
don't
straight
count
up. So,
as
yeah.
notches, but hookers don't count as
No,
notches or
no.
bed boys.
This was all plenty of fish, mate, and the dating apps. And I went a bit fucking
Yeah.
crazy for five. Honestly, as I said, it'd been
But
I think the
hookers are
weird part of
legal
it,
in your country.
it's a little bit like when we gained weight after a bodybuilding competition, Steve. I had 6 year dry spell, so I kind of made up for 6 years in a matter of about 4 months by dating multiple women in the same. Listen how fucked up this was. I had the person I ended up a little bit loved up with here was waiting for a delivery here, and the door knocked, and I think it was a guy delivering, and it was another woman that I'd seen the previous week coming over. We hadn't got that vibe from her, and I had to sort of very gently explain on the doorstep that I had someone in the house. Thank you very much for coming over. That's amazing. Not appropriate right now. They left, and when I went into the house, the person, very, very nice woman, in fact, she was understanding, says that was another woman, wasn't it? And I had to say yes and explain what the fuck was going on. I was being open and honest about the
You're
whole
running
thing.
your own brothel. You should have told them.
The only thing was, Steve, one of my male neighbours, they two of the fellas, they've all left home and got their own partners, etc. Said we were trying to work out what the fuck was happening, and I said I hadn't got a clue what was going on, guys. Never mind you. He said we saw so many different women coming and going. I was like, yeah, but again, just for 5 minutes. So libido is weird, Steve. Nothing
Yeah.
for 6 years, and then crazy, two in a
Oh
day,
yeah.
whatever.
So I
And
knew.
guys, there will be listeners out there that have probably done 3 in a day, Steve, 10 in a week. It's not.
Yeah. And it
It
happens
sounds
with
like bragging, but
women.
just to give you an idea, it's not a constant. It's not a. Doesn't happen all the fucking time. Libido's like that. And then here's the thing, guys, and it's the reason why products like this exist that we're going to talk about. It's precisely because it's not constant. It's precisely because it can be an issue.
Exactly.
It's precisely why
So
we're having this
and
conversation.
this,
So yeah,
and HCGenerate as well, and all these supplements we're talking about, it's not just for men, it's also for women. And it's also, it's like if you're in a gay relationship or lesbian relationship, you can get it
yeah,
for your partner. You can take it as
yeah.
well. So it doesn't matter, man, woman, straight, gay, doesn't
The
matter. I
HRT that
knew
I touched upon earlier is a great example,
I
Steve. My
I
mum went
knew
through menopause. The woman at the gym went through menopause.
yeah.
Women are in this, but they're more open than we are at talking about it. That's the
So
only difference, I
I
think.
knew a
It's the same problem.
woman back when I used to play poker in the poker community. There were a few women, so you can become friends with people playing poker with them and stuff. And she was a big time gambler. She was an accountant, so she was in finance as well. But anyway, she told me she was married for 8 years, and during the last 6 years of her marriage, she did not have sex with her husband. And then she didn't have sex at all for the entire 6 years. So after they divorced finally, then she made up for lost time, and she got super horny, and she was a horny girl. So at the end of the day, libido changes not just for men but for women as well, and a lot of things can factor. If you were in an abusive relationship as she was, physically or emotionally abusive, if you're a man, you come home and your wife is fucking annoying and pestering you and nagging you, of course your libido is going to go down. Of course you're not going to be able to get an erection. Who wants to fuck that? And with women, same thing. If your husband's a piece of shit and he's beating up on you or he's yelling at you or screaming at you and being an asshole, why would you get horny? Why would you get libido? So at the end of the day, it's important too, when we're talking about these supplements on a serious note, relationships are important too. And it's important in your relationship to have a healthy sexual relationship with that person that you're with and want them in the first place. Because there's no supplement and there's no drug or anything that's going to
Yeah,
fix
yeah,
if you're in that situation. You could run all the testosterone. You can run 10,000 milligrams a week of testosterone, take 20 caps of HCGenerate and all this stuff.
yeah.
But if you're in an abusive relationship or you are no longer attracted to your partner, it's not going to solve that. It's not going to
There
solve
is
at
some
all.
argument, and I've had this debate with Steve on the forums, and I said that there was some argument to be made. Let's use the erectile dysfunction drugs, Viagra as an example. Uh, that will enable you to get a better erection, and in a small way, will affect your libido, but only insofar as you become more confident and therefore feel more capable. Therefore, I listen, you're not going to get a hard on if there's no reason for you to get a hard on. Vis-a-vis, you're going to want it for it to happen. And you've got to want it by looking at porn or with a woman or whatever else in the ideal situation with a sexual partner. Simply sitting there on your own, not having any external stimuli or desire, and taking a Viagra, not going to do something in and of itself. There's a very small chance of that happening. If there is external stimuli and desire, then absolutely. And I think the increment in desire is a difference between uh, um, wanting to and having the ability to. So it needs to be understood that the two things are tied together, but they can be kind of loosely tied together. The example going back to the teenage puberty thing is you've got no chance of getting your leg over. You're not entirely convinced really that she did actually look at you in that particular way, and you still got a fucking hard on. Versus the worst case scenario, there's a woman absolutely, for want of a better phrase, Steve, or your sexual partner, absolutely fucking gagging for it, and your cock's going, yeah, I think the next Tuesday I can book you the next Tuesday. So you absolutely want these things. And like I said, let me touch on this now as well, Steve. Understanding libido erection. Look at the other factors that are going on in your life. Now, Steve's done shows back in the day which are a bit more man to man, worldly advice type shows. The obvious example that Steve's touched upon already, communicating, talking to your sexual partner, understanding what's going on in their life, having them understand what's going on in yours. Listen, I still fucking love you, but I'm super busy right
The
now.
only communication you should have with your partner is swallow or spit. That's literally the only communication, Mobster.
I'll give you an example, Stephen. You just said, all joking aside, one particular person, they'd be doing the washing up. I'd be sitting there on a chair watching them do the washing up, and then I'd be over there pulling up the back of whatever they were fucking wearing and wanting to get in on that action, so to speak, and then them like sighing and then getting into it. Whereas you do that now in certain longer term relationships, I'm fucking trying to do the fucking washing up, give it a rest. Inside, they might, on the scale of 1 to 10, be a 4 or 5. Oh, he still desires me, but at the same time, not in front of the kids. Can't you wait till we fucking stop doing whatever the fuck we're doing right now that needs to be done? And so on. So again, it's overly complicated. But let me just address certain other factors which are way more in control. The obvious stuff is, and this can actually, ironically, Steve, include overtraining. If you're super busy at work, if
Yeah, for sure. Work is an absolute killer and it can drain your mind and your body. Whether you have a physical job or or a job that's mind-numbingly stressful. So that can absolutely kill your libido. And then not getting proper sleep as well. So there's a lot of different factors that affect this. So it's very, very important to really attack all these different factors to really get it go. So let's start with ingredients. And HCGenerate is a great product, and HCGenerate contains all these supplements that we're about to talk about. So let's start with Fedosia agressus, 1,000 milligrams a serving. And look, this is a great supplement right here. It does a great job of not only helping you on the inside, but also visibly helping your balls get bigger. So that is one of the reasons it's so good for boosting confidence as well. So bigger nuts. We talk about, oh, this guy has big nuts. You see, you wanting like you're watching like a sports event, and this guy makes a big play, and the guy like says something. Oh, this guy has some balls on him. So that's something in our society that we've been kind of brainwashed into thinking, big balls are good, big balls are good. Well, Fedosia will definitely give you big balls. It's one of the most popular supplements used in the fitness industry for all these reasons I talked about. And it's also going to help boost your testosterone levels to boot. So it's a very, very important one. Whenever you're looking for a supplement, and you see the ingredients and you see something with Fedosia, it's very, very important to make sure it has at least 1,000 milligrams in it, or the supplement ain't worth a damn, in my opinion. And it's also important for it to have a stack of different things, not just something with Fedosia and one or two other ingredients. It needs to have a comprehensive list of supplements all together to give you the best benefits overall. So Fedosia, look, it's been used for a long time. It's one of the most popular supplements, and it's probably the number one most popular supplement, or number two most popular supplement, but definitely top three for these purposes, for libidos, erections, and boosting testosterone levels overall. The next one we talk about is fenugreek extract 1,000 milligrams. And fenugreek is a very important one. It's a great option for boosting libido and helping with bedroom issues. It can also help with your organ health as well. And there are multiple studies out there that show that it is great for sexual effects. And again, you can check out the articles on HCGenerate. You can look up the articles on HCGenerate and you'll see the studies that I've written over the years. But also with fenugreek, you can specifically look up the studies on fenugreek and see how effective at it is. Again, 1,000 milligrams, very, very important. I want to see a supplement with a solid amount of fenugreek. That tells me it's a great supplement. So, Mobster, I touched upon Fedosia. I just touched upon fenugreek. Why don't you talk to the listeners about the benefits of Fedosia and the benefits of fenugreek that you have done in your research and how they have helped you over the years as well?
It's all right, man. I'll do zinc in a minute as well. One of the things we've done on previous shows, Steve, is we talked about how some of these ingredients, these plants, came to be explored and known for what they are, right? So, for example, I think there's a few famous, is it not Darwin? I think of a very famous explorer from the UK, ironically, is not the only one, going around the world and visiting all these different islands and continents, places that had never been seen before by a white face. Boat comes in, 100 sailors, and this explorer is in charge of the expedition. And they get off and they go and they bring presents and they bring gifts and they sit on the beach or they go to the village hut and they sit down. And they notice that all the women have large breasts and all the men are wearing these either enhancements, so we say, to make themselves look bigger in certain particular areas, or why are all these tribal people healthy looking? Why these kids look amazing? If they've just come from London, arguably the busiest, especially pre-Victorian stuff, the biggest and busiest, but also the filthiest and most disgusting shit running down the street and all that kind of stuff, when other cities didn't even exist. That disgusting, dirty, smoky, and unhealthy. The thing of that time when they were exploring the world, Steve, we had a thing where we would only have a bath twice a fucking year, and we're actually convinced that being too clean was bad for our health. So I can tell how things change. So one of the things that these explorers would notice was the women's interest, meaning their libido, seeing a white man, their interest in their sexual partners. Although there'd be a certain amount of bragging between the white man, the explorer, and the tribal elders or whatever else, they would also notice that these people were going off to the huts of the night time. Here they are living in a fucking jungle on a desert island, Steve, and yet they're horny as fuck. So at some point, especially if alcohol become involved, certain plants and certain foods, juju or whatever, they've done this in movies for a joke, Steve. And they started to realize that certain plants, we're not talking about discovering tobacco or the potato here, Steve, certain particular plants, Fedosia and fenugreek could be great examples, become discussed. Oh, this particular plant, we call it the mama plant. What's that for? It's for this. And the man would make the typical manly thing of giving the impression of having an erection. It gives you a better erection. There'll be some translation. They'll be, that can't be fucking right. He's talking shit. So, well, no, they would take samples of this plant. Over time, and especially in modern society, we would start to look at it. One of the other ingredients, which we'll discuss shortly, is tribulus. And tribulus is a great example, Steve, where, like Fedosia, like fenugreek, come from different places around the world. And the scientists were able to break down, is there a constituent part of the plant? Yes, in this case, for example, with Fedosia, it's a stem. Is there an optimal dosage? If we take a small amount, nothing much was happening. My libido, etc., is exactly the same. But if I took a greater amount, so you have controls set into the test, you start to realize there might be specific hormone profile or the way that it affects the hormonal profile in your body, and it's dose related. 200 milligrams is not cutting it. So, for examples here, Steve, in HCGenerate, we're looking at 1,000 milligrams. And it has to be the stem of the plant, not the leaf, not the root, not the seed, not the flower, the stem, because that's where this particular hormone, this extract, is concentrated and useful. So the other forms, we might get something, but it's not the same level, and so on. Even the preparation, is it dried and we just grind it up and we add it to a tablet, or is it a solution? Is it a tincture? Does it have to be a certain percentage as a tincture, and so on? So you look at all these different examples, and over time you get to realize that this particular product in this particular form at this particular dosage absolutely has an effect. Now, in the lab versus the real world. So in the last pre-HCGenerate, so I'm going to go back 15 or 20 years, we started to see certain ingredients talked about on a regular basis. There was two reasons. One was the alternative to anabolics, and I think it's specifically attributable when we talk about that in a little while. And the other one was, again, the stresses of modern life, the effects of modern life, and going back to those tribal elders, those tropical islanders, the plants on the other side of the world, where they were absolutely rampant and fertile and had zero issues, and so on and so forth. And goes, what was acting in that society, and then realizing that we can include this. And then in the real world, in modern terms, we started to see these ingredients. People were going through the books, they were looking at the studies, they were going to university libraries, they were digging out these papers, and some of the better, were more interested in this particular aspect, especially when it comes to bodybuilding, researchers would find these things and go, we should be looking at this. Can we include this ingredient, this product, in a product like HCGenerate, and especially as per HCGenerate, in combination with other ingredients as well?
So let's get into the next couple. Vitamin E, 30 IUs. This is a very vital vitamin that we need as athletes to help us keep going and give us vitality. It's also been shown to help build muscle and prevent muscle wasting. It can also help with endurance and organ health. So overall, very important to have this as part of your protocol. I've seen studies out there that have been proven when it comes to fertility that vitamin E will boost fertility levels, combined with Clomid, for example. And this is very, very good. And this shows that it doesn't have to be a drug to be very, very effective when it comes to fertility. So one of the reasons why vitamin E is included is for this reason. And a lot of people will say, well, why does fertility have to be important here? Because fertility goes hand in hand with libido and erections in a natural state. So in other words, if you're in a natural state, unless you're like on TRT for life or you're just blasting and cruising steroids and you shut down your fertility, when you don't have that during your PCT or in between cycles, you don't have exogenous hormones in your system. If your fertility levels are crashing or down, that's a red flag that your reproductive system is struggling. That's a red flag that your libido and erections will also struggle. So vitamin E is very, very important, and the fact that it showed that it's so beneficial for fertility proves how effective it is overall on your reproductive system. So Mobster touched on vitamin E a little bit before we move on to zinc.
I'm thinking based on what Steve was just saying, is there's a huge thing where Steve and I are kind of keen on the idea that you don't blast and cruise, that we want you to do what we call a PCT, post-cycle therapy. We want you to restart or help restart your natural testosterone levels, and obviously having a higher back to natural normal levels of testosterone is going to absolutely have an effect on your libido, and then indirectly have an effect on your quality of erection. So these are things that are important. And again, I think it's the difference between taking a hammer to a small nail versus just giving it the light tap. Why don't we do just exactly what we need to do? Even things, for example, Stephen, I mentioned it already, the fact that we like to go to the gym and we need to recover from that. And sometimes that we can be on restrictive diets, which might be, for example, low in vitamin E. Now, ironically, and 30 IUs here, Stephen, we said, what's the one thing that we sometimes debate this, especially when it comes to baby making and so on? We look at the protocols that are suggested by the fertility doctors. And vitamin E is such a simple thing, Steve, just to add to the diet, just to add to someone's protocol. It's not super expensive. It's not crazy. It's not exotic. It doesn't come from halfway across the world on a tropical island. It wasn't discovered 300 years ago in that particular way. It's super simple, and yet it makes a difference. And it's proof positive that lacking something in your diet, missing certain vitamins as per this one, can have an impact. But again, it's sometimes the difference between what naturally occurs in your diet, especially restricted diet, versus what's going to occur in this situation. Let me give you a very simple one. Zinc, and I'm going to say a zinc amino acid chelate, 7 milligrams, 45% of your daily values or requirements for the day. I've used this example before, Steve. We know that zinc is good for, I believe, uptake and absorption and utilization of protein. It helps with the repair, for example. If you cut yourself, it helps the skin heal, and so on and so forth. So we know that it's something that's required in the body. There are other things going on with it. I think it's eyesight a little bit, skin, again, like I just said, in terms of actual skin health, never mind scars healing and so on. But let me give you an example. So we know that is a testosterone booster. And the example I've given, the story that I've told before was thus. I did a little tiny bit of research. I think this we're looking at between 1982 and 1990. And I just started to read a little bit about body nutrition and see the benefits of using zinc to enable me to recover from training and stresses, the hard work I was doing in the factory environment at the time. And the story I told was thus. I'd read that if you overdosed, if the typical daily amount that most of us were taking at that time was around 5 milligrams, as we can see here, 7's better. If you tripled the pills, the little 5 milligram pills, and you took 15 milligrams for a few days, your body's ability to produce semen via the prostate went into overdrive, just briefly, until it settled down and allowed sort of the little balance, checks and balances to get back to normal by excretion, by shitting it out or pissing it out or whatever, Steve. Just for a few days, you would OD it. You would go up to 15 milligrams instead of 5. And at the weekend, if you got lucky, your ability to produce a greater volume for 24 to 48 hours was increased. So I told some variation of this science to a couple of buddies of mine. I believe even then I was having a nickname. I think my nickname back in the day, Steve, was Kimo, short for Kimo Sabi out of High Hole Silver and his buddy. And the idea was they go away, they try this. You could zinc tablets in and of themselves are cheap as fuck. And I get a report on Monday, like a pat on the back. Jesus fucking Christ, it was unfucking believable. Like I said, it's a very temporary thing, but it proves, if only as an anecdotal story, just how effective and just how much of an impact on your libido, when this example, your ability to produce semen, the fluid, can be improved in a dramatic fashion, if only for a short period of time, as per that example, over a 5 or 4 or 5 day period, and then over a very sexy, enjoyable weekend. So we absolutely know that it has an effect just on that story alone. We know that the science supports it, and we know that it's one of those, again, I think, missing constituents sometimes from poor diets that will have a small but negative effect on your libido, on your quality of erection, and by making sure that you include it at the right dose, in this example, 7 milligrams, over and above what's found in your diet, will form an effective product, Steve. The tribulus one, which I'll touch upon now, is something that I've mentioned again multiple times on similar shows. And it especially ties into what I said earlier on about the Olympics. There was a period in the late 70s and 80s where the drug use, specifically from Eastern Europe, Russia, and to a lesser degree other places, was getting out of control. You had females that didn't look like females, men that didn't look like men. The shot putters and certain field athletic athletes were just fucking huge. The weightlifting stuff was very, very competitive. And both sides of the Pacific were, especially the Eastern Europeans and the Russians, were throwing state money at the things. And so testing got strict. Tribulus was one of the ingredients out there that researchers, specifically Bulgarian researchers, Steve, before we move on, looked at and found they had an effect. It's standardized at a minimum 45% here, has to be the fruit, Steve, and the dosage in here is 500 milligrams.
Yeah,
Talk a little
and
bit.
tribulus, yeah, and tribulus is a very, very important ingredient. Erections, libido, heart health, sleep, energy, everything, and all that comes together. Because if you're not sleeping good, if you only get 3 hours of sleep, it's going to be hard for you to get a good erection the next day. Does that make sense? It's going to be hard for you to have libido. So all that comes into mix. 3,4-divinol, one of the best supplements out there for increasing free testosterone levels. It's a must use, especially off cycle and during PCT. You need to make sure that you're doing that binding to the SHBG, and it's a great supplement for that purpose. A lot of people don't know that a supplement can do a great job of that. People think just like, oh, just Proviron or just anabolic steroids bind to SHBG. No, 3,4-divinol does. It's going to make your entire cycle work better. This is why HCGenerate works good on cycle. It's going to make your PCT work better, and it's going to be making whether you're a natural, uh, natural bodybuilder or natural anything, gym rat, whatever. It's going to make the testosterone they have in your system work better. So it's an absolute must. 500 milligrams of that, 500 milligrams of tribulus, Tonkat alley root extract mobster, and boron citrate are the last two ingredients of
Yeah.
HCGenerate. 100 milligrams of each. And I'll start with Tonkat Ali root extract. Great option for muscles and energy. It's going to boost your fertility. It's going to get your reproductive system humming. It's going to give you confidence. It's going to boost your libido, boost your erections all together. Boron, it's going to help your body run more smoothly overall. It's a great
Yep.
addition to this. You don't see testosterone supplements out there. Boosting supplements have boron in a lot of cases, and that's a shame because boron does everything, makes everything run more smooth. So it reinforces all the
Yeah.
ingredients that we've talked about, and it's a very important option
I
on
think with
this.
boron, Steve, there was some element of a lot of companies got on the boron thing and then they didn't understand it doesn't work best when it's run on its own. It needs to be in combination with these other ingredients that we just described. It had some small effect initially and that seemed to drop off. But that's because people were taking boron on its own with some fillers and binders. Once they realized you should combine it with these other ingredients like we just described, then you started to see an effect. And it's one of those things, there's no good having something work for 5 minutes. We want something that works all the fucking time. All of these ingredients have got loads and loads of research to back them up. I don't think there's anything we've listed here, Steve, that you guys can't go and look at as singular ingredients in research documentation via the university libraries that are available to you online now, and look at the ingredients, look at the studies and see the effect. And some of those will talk about the dosages, some will talk about the form, some will talk about the effects initially versus long term and so on. But then you start to get into what we call the synergistic effect, which is all these ingredients with the right ratios, close to, sometimes not always at, the singular optimal dose that was used in a study. But when you combine it with the other ingredients, then you get the synergistic effect of one acting off another. You can't have, for example, 2,000 milligrams of something. So look, talk about a little bit here, Steve, and I'll start this off with the idea of how to run it. We occasionally get asked on the forums, what's the best dose? And there's an argument to be made here, Steve, for, as I quite often say, just fucking read the label, guys. But if you're on cycle, I would argue that you don't need to be taking the 9 pills per day. You can cut that down to 4 or 5 pills a day because you're looking for the, as Steve said earlier on, boosting the cycle that you're doing, but also recovering from the cycle that much quicker. If you don't use it on cycle and you just use it off cycle as a PCT, then run it at exactly that right dosage. And then there's even an example, and I know you've mentioned this a few times, Steve. People are in between cycles, they've recovered. I think you've talked about the quote unquote Saturday night effect. So talk about just briefly dosing
Yeah, you
and
don't
how
have to run
you're going to
nine.
hit the
Yeah,
right level.
9 a day. That was old school, but the new ingredients with AC Generate, now that the formula has been modernized,
It's
five
five.
capsules
Yeah,
a
sorry,
day.
Steve. Yeah,
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 five
yeah.
capsules is all you need per day. And the most popular way to run it would be you do half in the morning, half in the evening. So 2 or 3 in the morning, 2 or 3 in the evening. Or you can do five before your bedroom activities, 1 to 2 hours, or five all at once before the gym or something like that. And that will give you that boost in confidence going into it. So try it. Try it like 1 or 2 hours before bedroom activities, and you'll definitely notice, you do have a difference. And some people like to combine it with the dick drugs or run the dick drugs at a much lower dose. These dick drugs, the problem with these dick drugs, okay, when it comes to erections, a lot of people say, well, why don't I just run dick drugs? The problem with these dick drugs is they make you sleepy. They're vasodilators. They loosen things up, and so you'll be trying to do it and you're feeling tired. So if you have issues with erections or issues with libido as it is, and you take one of these dick drugs, you'll find yourself being tired a lot quicker, and you just fall asleep before you even get a chance to do it. So especially if it's like in the evening, if you take one like at 9 o'clock and you're planning on doing it at 10 because your wife gets home late from work or whatever, or your girlfriend or your boyfriend, whatever, guess what happens? You're going to fall asleep before it even gets to that point. I used to date a nurse.
There's even an
She used to come
argument,
home
Stephen, of
late.
the
and I'd be sleeping when she came home. So if you take if you take Viagra or Cialis, you'll be tired. But HCGenerate won't make you tired. That's the nice thing about it. It will not make you tired because they're
I
natural.
also like the fact that you're using a natural approach rather than a forced approach. And I'm just thinking, I think
Yeah.
is it
And
PG
headaches too. You
141,
get
Steve?
headaches from these dick drugs
Yeah.
as well. And
What's
the
the one
headaches,
that? What's the one where the guys had to inject a particular prescription medication into the base of their penis in order to get an erection? And then I'm like, guys, there were people out there with zero medical reason for using this product. And listen, we talk about PDs all the time on these shows. But so you go, oh, listen, I'm with this girl. I want to absolutely guarantee that we're going to have the fucking time of our lives. And I'm like, don't go to the nuclear option because if you've got nowhere else to go, guys, start with the natural option. Fix your diet, fix your lifestyle. Look at HCGenerate, use HCGenerate. Don't go fucking nuclear. Don't rely on 500 milligrams or 100 milligrams or double the dosage of this ED or that ED. Or worse, as I said, some without having some sort of inflatable bladder where you squeeze your balls and your fucking cock is hard. Don't go to the nuclear option. Start with the natural options first. Use herbals, use his ingredients, see the effects, notice what's going on, and be aware, like we introduced you at the beginning of the show, the idea that it is not a constant. The quality, listen, we can do what we can, guys. That's why we're giving you this advice to encourage you to understand what happens naturally and normally, to understand how you can help make these things happen naturally and normally. At the same time, for want of a better phrase, turbo your lifestyle a little bit when it comes to using a product like HCGenerate. Add these ingredients into your life and increase it. And then only going nuclear, like the injectable into the base of your cock, when you absolutely have to because you're at some terrible medical condition and you still love and want to fuck your missus or your partner or whatever. Don't go nuclear straight away. Don't go. But you're going to end up with fucking lollipops and fucking elastic bands, guys. Come on. So look at these things. I want to touch upon briefly here, Steve, as we come towards the end of the show. You and I have done this before, and we talk about companies like Needtobuildmuscle producing these products. So you go, okay, there are 1,000. You and I have literally investigated some of the top sellers. 1,000 testosterone boosting, erectile dysfunction benefiting medications, especially quote unquote herbals out there. And one of the issues was underdosed to fuck or limited in the number of ingredients. Some of them were made to a price point. I think one very popular UK company produced a product with 5 ingredients. And the only way you got close to HCGenerate is you would take 3 times the recommended dosage, which essentially made it the same goddamn price as using HCGenerate. So in other words, it was cheap for the sake of being cheap. And in order to get the same kind of dose, the same kind of effect, you had to take 3 times the dose. So they might as well have just made the product properly like HCGenerate in the first place. The worst example, well, I think we've looked at things for organ protection, and I'm thinking off the top of my head here, Steve, would add like the least fucking ingredients you could possibly imagine. The price was barely pennies, and the dosaging was an absolute fucking joke. So you need to understand that Needtobuildmuscle came out with products like this because they haven't made it to be cheap. They've made it to be effective. They've gone and looked at the research and they've gone and done the science. They've worked with formulators. There's 2 or 3 huge companies in America that do 90% of the products for everybody. And they've sat down with a formulator and said, when can we get this ingredient? Can we get this quality that you've talked about? Is it the right dosage amount? Is it going to be absolutely effective? Talk a little bit about Needtobuildmuscle doing that kind of stuff, Steve, before we finish the show.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, Need to Build Muscle, their products are made for bodybuilders, and we talk about them on this podcast for a reason. And they have the highest quality products. Just look at the ingredients and you'll be able to see how important they are. So it's really crucial that you make sure if you want to get a testosterone booster, if you want to get something to help with your libido or erections, that you take a close look at HCGenerate because it has, as we've shown you, it has the dosages, it has the ingredients, and it's a supplement all in one rather than having to buy the supplements separate.
Yeah.
So definitely check it out for sure. Come on the forum and you can learn more about it as well. Mobster, take us in the
It,
disclaimer.
it, it, it does everything you want all in one place. I've seen guys go out and buy 20 different supplements, Steve, and different ingredients just to get close to the profile that we talked about here. So let us know what your thoughts on the subject are. Are we correct on our thoughts on libido, erection quality? Some of you listeners will be old. Come and tell the younger listeners what that's like and how these things can affect us and the quality of your diet, the stresses, and so on and so forth. Make sure you address those factors as well, guys. Please note, we are not doctors and the opinions are ours. It's our view based on our experience and views on the topic. Our podcasts are for informational purposes and entertainment only. The freedom of speech and the First Amendment applies.